Hey, everybody, welcome to the off ramp. I am your host, Thomas Jason Anderson. Remember, if you guys like this content and you want to share it with friends, go ahead. Please subscribe. I'm on YouTube, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, X, everywhere, basically. So, yeah, please subscribe and please like and share. I really appreciate it. So, today is going to be an interesting day because I'm going to open up the hood a little bit and show you guys sort of what it looks like to do typical political op research for a campaign. And in this case, we're going to do some looking at a U.S. Senate race in the state of Mississippi. The incumbent is a Republican named Cindy Hyde-Smith, and the her opponent is a Democrat named Mr. Cologne. So I have her picture up here. Cindy Hyde-Smith, as you can see here, she was first appointed by the Mississippi governor. She's running for this election now. She already got hit up a little bit in the primary with her opponent before about her campaign finance spending. You guys can take a look at that. What I'm going to do right now is dig into something that I looked at, which was really, really strange in her campaign filings. So, to give everyone an understanding of how this works, right? So, members of Congress, members of the Senate, they're allowed to have campaign accounts. And usually it's like their name, you know, Hyde Smith from Mississippi, whatever, whatever. But they also have things called joint fundraising committees, and they also have entities called leadership PACs. So in this case, we're going to look at Cindy Hyde Smith's joint fundraising committee she has, and a leadership pack she has, and some interesting transactions that occurred that appear to be embezzlement of campaign funds. I can't explain it any other way. There should probably be an investigation into this because it really is hard to explain what's going on here. So with that in mind, let's jump right on in. I'll go ahead and share my FEC screen with you guys so you can look at what I'm looking at. All right. So as you can see here, this is the Federal Election Commission's website. And this is a joint fundraising committee called the CHS BSO JFC. Now, if you were digging into Cindy Hyde Smith's campaign finance, you probably wouldn't be looking at something like this, right? So that was the first thing I thought about when I saw that. I said, ooh, this looks kind of weird, the name of this thing. It looks like it's something that the people involved want to kind of have fly under the radar. Because normally when you have a joint fundraising committee, you want to name it something that the public can easily see, that or can easily connect to you as a senator, especially because she hasn't been in the Senate forever. And so you want the name of the committee itself to like have her name somewhere in there. Yes, it's CHS Cindy Hyde Smith, right? CHS, but still, um, that's usually not the way you do it. A lot of times what happens is when campaign donors give money to a campaign, they like to write the check to an entity that has the candidate's name in it because there's prestige in that. It's really rare that you get a campaign, some type of campaign with this type of name in it because if someone cuts a check, there isn't any real prestige. Most people are not going to know that this is connected to Senator Cindy Hyde Smith. So that's the first thing that I noticed. I thought, oh, that's a little bit off, but that's not illegal, so it's no big deal. But that's when I said, oh, but let me look into this because little red flags. If you're doing this type of research, little things like that will clue you in onto whether you should dig further or not. So let's just take a look here at what's happening with this campaign account. So to give you guys a uh, quick and dirty version of what a joint fundraising committee is in the U.S. political system, right? What it is usually these candidates, they have campaign finance limits, and they have a set group of donors. And once those donors max out, they can't give any more money to that candidate. One of the ways that these members of the Senate have figured to get around that okay, is they're allowed to make something called a joint fundraising committee. And what a joint fundraising committee is, it's a committee designed to connect the campaign, the regular political campaign of a candidate, to other campaigns of other candidates and other senators. Okay. And when you do that, I'll tell you what happens, right? What ends up happening is you can get two senators. They both have donors who have maxed out. But if they join together in a separate committee called a joint fundraising committee, then they can go back to their same donors, and those donors can max out again to the joint fundraising committee. So what happens now is, instead of their donors being able to donate again and over the limit to that senator, the senator swap donors. So in other words, Cindy Hyde-Smith's donors can max out to this joint fundraiser, and the other gentleman, I think it's called a Big Sky Committee, BSO. I think it's out of Montana, senator out of Montana. He gets to have his donors max out, and what happens is all of his donors who maxed out, their money goes to Cindy, and then all of Cindy's donors' money that maxed out goes to him. So it's a workaround. Okay. It allows them to get around these campaign finance limits. So these joint fundraising committees are primarily used for that. When you look at them, you'll see big, huge donations. But then when the money goes out, the money usually goes out to their regular Senate campaign committees. The money doesn't get spent on fun events. It doesn't get spent doesn't be it's not given to other candidates or other members of the Senate who aren't a part of the joint fundraising committee. It stays in house with the original senators who came together to form this committee. So in this case, when you look at the contributions, this is what started raising red flags for me. I looked and I said, okay, so total receipts for 2023 to 2024 were $54,000, right? Total receipts. Out of that, 30,000 were contributions, and out of that, 20,000 came from individuals. That's very strange. Like I said before, with the joint fundraising committee, the whole point of it is to allow donors who have maxed out to you to max out again to you. So the way a joint fundraising committee should look when you're looking at it, the individual contributors should be the biggest number here, because that's going to be all of the maxed out donors that they had already dumping money in here. But when you look at the numbers here, that's not what happened. And I said, whoa, well, what is this joint fundraising committee for then? Because if it's not to allow your maxed out donors to max out again, then what are you doing here, right? So the first thing I saw was there was $10,000 from another committee, other committee contributions. That's strange for joint fundraising. So I went to take a look at it, and I'll show you guys what it is. Okay. It's $10,000 from something called the Livestock Marketing Association Political Action Committee. Well, that entity is very close to Cindy Hyde-Smith and her husband because they are cattle farmers. So that committee is basically like, as close as you can get. That PAC is as close as you can get to being personally involved with the office holder. So this money coming in came from an entity that is run by individuals, where if she picks up the phone, any amount of money that she asks for, they're going to send without any questions asked. Okay. So that also raised a red flag to me, because usually these joint fundraising committees, they don't take in money from these groups like these PACs. This PAC money usually goes to a leadership PAC. It doesn't normally go to these joint fundraising committees. So that was another big red flag to me. So I'm seeing red flags, red flags. And then the other one that I saw, which really blew me away, was transfers from affiliated committees. That's when I said, whoa, what's going on here? Because like I said before, joint fundraising committees are really for maxed out donors. It's not really to be used to dump funds from one committee to another. Like I said before, the reason why you form this is because in your regular committee, they've already maxed out to you. So it doesn't make sense to take money that's already been maxed out and then to shuffle it off to a joint fundraising committee, because the whole point of the joint fundraising committee is to bring in more maxed out dollars, not transfer old maxed out dollars. So I say, oh, this is getting really, really interesting. Then I look down at the expenditures. I said, okay, so if they, and by the way, that's not much money, $54,000. That's really not much for a senator and a joint fundraising committee. It's just not. Okay. Oh, and by the way, take a look at this. When you look at the committee that sent it, right, you can see it came from the Conservative Harvest Success PAC and the Big Sky Opportunity PAC, right? So those are the two PACs that are already together, aligned to form this joint fundraising committee. So then I looked down and I said, okay, well, where is this money going? Is it going out to her regular committee? Is it going out to her leadership PAC? No, it's not. What the money went to is and it wasn't all the money. $22,775 went to other federal operating expenditures. When you look, there's transfers to affiliate committees, nothing. Contributions to other committees, nothing. Party coordinated expenditures, nothing. So, like I said before, joint fundraising committees are designed to bring in money and then transfer it back out to affiliated committees. This thing took in the money, but didn't transfer it out to the committees. It was spent on other federal operating expenditures. So I took a look there and I said, whoa, look at this. It was spent on something called Genesco Sports Enterprises, Inc. in Texas for a site rental on January 3rd, 2024. So here's the issue here, okay? First of all, like I said before, money shouldn't be going as expenditures once it goes into these joint fundraising committees. It can go for a fundraiser for the committee, but not all of the money. In this case, all of the expenditures went towards this one Genesco Sports Enterprises for a site rental in Texas. Now, as I said earlier, when you look at the contribution, so whenever you have a fundraiser, the whole point of it is to invite people to the fundraiser, lobbyists, previous donors, et cetera, et cetera. But when you look at the contributions, they came from a committee that's closely aligned to Cindy Hyde-Smith. So they don't need to go to a fundraiser. They already know her. She doesn't have to invite them to Texas for anything. All she has to do is pick up a phone and they're going to cut her the check. The reason why you have fundraisers, the reason why you pay for site rentals is so that you can hold an event. And that event is supposed to entertain your donors. Well, it doesn't make sense that she would hold an event for a group that she doesn't have to entertain, because this group, the cattle guys, they're going to give her a check no matter what. And then when you look at the $24,000 that came from her affiliated committee, it's like, whoa, why? She doesn't have to invite her own committee to an event. Her and the other guys' committee, they don't have to invite themselves to a fundraiser. Why would you do that? Like, her committee, if she wants the money, she just tells her treasurer, cut me a check. She doesn't have to hold an event for that. So I said to myself, wait a minute here. How is it possible that she gets together, she forms this joint fundraising committee, almost half of the money comes in from affiliated committees to her, right? One that she's really close to, another that she controls, okay? So none of these guys are going to fundraisers. And yet, the only expenditure went for a site rental to Genesco Sports Enterprises. So then I said to myself, well, these Genesco Sports Enterprise guys, they must be pretty, you know, pretty good at fundraisers, right? Because I said, hey, if she's using them and she's dropping, over $20,000 for a site rental in Texas, I wonder how many other members of the Senate have done that, right? So take a look. What we're going to look at now is I'm going to pull up the expenditures for Genesco to see who else has paid them, right? Just to see the other senators. Maybe Ted Cruz has paid them. If they're able to bill that much money and it's in Texas, then I'm sure they've had other types of events. So I popped them into the FEC here for disbursements. Hopefully this will pop up. It's going to take a little bit of time. It's generating. It's searching every single campaign committee right now. Anyone who has ever possibly sent money to it. Let's see what the results are. Okay, hold on. By the way, so here we go. There were articles written, for example, in the American Ledger that show that she has had a conflict of interest when it comes to this livestock legislation, pushing it while she's also a cattle farmer. And as you can see, they're also giving her a lot of money into her joint fundraising committee, a joint fundraising committee that doesn't have her name in it, and having a fundraiser where they really don't have to attend. So let's try to pull this up here. Okay, here we go. So take a look, okay? Take a look at who's paying them. What we have here is Loomis Victory Committee gave them for event expense for catering $2,805, right? Then you've got Conservatives Harvesting Success PAC. That's Cindy Hyde-Smith's PAC. That has paid them $15,900. She paid them $15,976.24 for event tickets on August 22nd, 2024. And then, as you can see, CHSBSO, which is the joint fundraising committee we're looking at, got the site rental for $22,750. The only other thing, and here we go, look at this. The Loomis Victory Committee gave them $9,750 for rodeo tickets, right? So when you look across the board, if you want to know, is an expenditure valid to a certain vendor, okay? What you want to look at is who else has spent money on that same exact vendor. And as you can see, this vendor, the only other entity who's paid them is this Loomis Victory Committee, which looks like some type of leadership PAC, right? And they've spent like $11,000 total, okay, for catering and rodeo tickets. But then when you look at Cindy Hyde-Smith, her event tickets are almost $16,000. So she basically got, I'm going to assume, rodeo tickets because that's what's being paid for here, right? And it's in Texas. So I'm assuming this was a rodeo. So she got $16,000 paid for rodeo tickets from her leadership PAC. And then she got another almost $23,000 for a site rental. And like I said before, this is for a joint fundraising committee. that's supposed to be bringing in maxed out donors she already has to bring in maxed out dollars. So if she's spending this much money for a site rental for a rodeo place, and she's spending $16,000 in her other committee for event tickets, where are all of the donors for this? Like I said, the big chunk of money coming in came from her own independent, her own leadership pack, okay, and a pack that is so closely aligned to her. All she has to do is call them up, and they're going to cut her a check. You would assume if you're spending this much money on a rodeo and tickets that there should have been hundreds of people at this event, which means she should have brought in tons of campaign dollars into that joint fundraising committee. But that didn't happen. It was her own money and money from a pack that's closely aligned to her and her husband, the cattle guys. So that's why I say, is this embezzlement? What's going on here? Did she just have a really good time at the rodeo and she brought a bunch of family and friends and she did a VIP thing? Was it, because if you look at her primaries, her opponent brought this up that she's spending campaign dollars. She's off in places like Las Vegas and other places. But this thing here, I can't explain it at all. I don't understand how it's this much money going out and basically nothing coming in from donors. Like, she had this site rental, and from the look at the contributions, nobody showed up. And yet she bought a boatload of rodeo tickets from this same group about 7 months later, 8 months later, and you would think to yourself, well, wait a minute. If you rented the place for a rodeo back in January of 2024 and you spent $23,000 and you didn't even bring that much in from donors, from individual donors, then why would you then turn around and spend $16,000 on rodeo tickets at the same place that you came up with nothing on the last time you had a site rental there? It's disturbing. This is not what joint fundraising committees are not supposed to be used like this. This is beyond. I can't even explain this. And here's the other issue, right? So there are carve outs for senators when they're using their campaigns. They can basically use their campaigns for personal stuff, for travel, for this or that, and they don't get in trouble. Okay, they can do all kinds of personal things with their campaign accounts, and it's not a big deal. But these leadership PACs and these joint fundraising committees, they're not legally considered like a part of the senator's office at all. They're considered more like a separate LLC. So in the eyes of the FEC and in the eyes of campaign finance law. So when you're using a joint fundraising committee, you really can't use it for your personal use as a senator. You can't use it the same way you would do your own campaign committee. You just can't. You have to treat it like a totally separate entity. And if you do use the money for personal reasons, then that's considered, income, basically. So we have a situation here where I think this needs to be investigated. Someone needs to figure out, did she use a joint fundraising committee for her and her family and friends to have a big rodeo escapade in Texas in 2024 so they could all have fun? Because if that's what happened and this event wasn't for campaign donors, then that's considered income for her now, which means she should have reported that. That's a big problem for her. So there's more here on her, but I just thought I would bring this up. I thought I'd run this. I go through this to show you guys a little bit of what it looks like to do stuff like this, to do campaign finance, op research, to dig into FEC filings, A lot of it's boring. It's not so fun when you're digging through. But when you come across stuff like this, and you've got rodeos, and you've got no donors showing up, most of the money coming in from affiliated PACs, a leadership PAC that she controls, it starts to look like embezzlement. It starts to look like she's using campaign dollars to live a party lifestyle that she normally wouldn't pay for herself personally. Because I doubt that she would personally drop $23,000 on a rodeo for her to have fun at personally. That's a lot of money. I mean, unless she's like really, really, really super wealthy, and she is a little wealthy, but I don't think she's that wealthy that she's going to drop that kind of cash on a rodeo for her and her family to have fun at. All right. So to me, this is a key for this Senate race in Mississippi. This is going to be a big race. She is the incumbent, but from the looks of it, it doesn't look like she has taken the job very serious. And the guy running against her, Mr. Cologne, they have like a personal beef with each other. So he was up to become a federal judge, and she blocked it. So he couldn't become. So now he's running against her. So this is going to be a hot and heated campaign. I think everyone should pay attention to it, and I think she needs to be investigated. Someone needs to look at this joint fundraising committee and this rodeo event that she supposedly paid for. That I call it the ghost rodeo event because no donors showed up. It was her and her joint fundraise, her leadership pack, and the cattle guys pack, the livestock guys pack, who threw money in that, and you know that was it. This wasn't a thing where she had 100 of her best donors there, and they all have fun at the rodeo in Texas. That did not happen. Now, if it did happen, it's not showing up in the campaign finance reports. There are no donations from those people. There are no contributions from those people. So the question is, like, what was this for? I think it was for personal use. I think she was partying with this. And that's a pretty big party that she had there. So yeah, I think an investigation is in order. I think this is just the beginning on her. But I wanted to share that with you guys today to give you guys a chance to look at, how I do this, what I'm looking at when I am looking, and what sort of is hiding in plain sight with some of these elected officials, how they're spending their money like in crazy ways, how they're using these joint fundraising committees not to bring in their maxed out donors and distribute the money back to their campaigns to run for an election, but instead they're having rodeo parties and there's no money coming in. It's just all going out. Yeah. Looks like embezzlement to me, guys. Anyway, thanks again. If you guys enjoyed this content, if you enjoy what you're looking at, please subscribe. Please like and share. I will continue to put up videos like this. I'm looking at the Ohio Senate race next. That will be one of the videos I put up. But thank you again for the support. Thank you for joining me, guys. Have a great day. Have a great rest of your weekend. Take care.